All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome to today's live stream. We have a live training today, all about Refeed for cheat days. So I'm going to tag some people here, wait for some people to come on, and then we'll hop straight into today's training. Give me 1 second here. Just going to tag some people, wait for some people to come on. How's everyone's Sunday going so far? Everyone's tuning in so far. Happy Father's Day. Wait for some fewer people to join, and then we'll get straight into today's training. Tag. Awesome. All right, let's see. Let's see if this is good. Don, what's going on, man? Don is tuning in. So like I said, it's going to wait for fewer people to join today's live stream. It's Father's Day today, so probably won't get as many viewers as it looks like my audio is messed up again. Okay, so it looks like I'm using headphones today.
Not better? No headphones? Let me see. No Bluetooth. Okay, that should be better. I took out my headphones, so hopefully the audio is better there. Aaron, let me know if that is better in terms of the audio there, if you can hear me fine. Perfect. Awesome. All right, guys, just going to wait for a few more people to join. We'll start in a minute or so here. First off, happy Father's Day. So thank you guys all for everyone that is tuning in and watching this on the replay afterwards. Thank you guys all for tuning in. I know probably you guys have all had some great plans after this, maybe some cool dinners, etc., etc. So, like I mentioned, today's training is all going to be about refeeds, cheat days, and all that stuff. When to implement, what they even are, why they work, and so on and so forth. So this has been a highly requested training, going off our training last week on cardio. I think Aaron, actually, you mentioned that you wanted a training on this. So glad to be doing this. So yeah, again, we'll start here in just a second or so. Maybe wait for a couple more people to join. I know it's Father's Day, so probably won't get as many of you guys tuning in today. But if you guys are here right now, Donovan, Aaron, I know Cam just tuned in. Comment down below, #live, so I know who's watching live. And if you guys are watching on the replay afterwards, comment down below, #replay, so I know who tuned in afterwards as well. So, Kim, what's going on? First live stream for you. Happy to have you on. So, all right, guys, I think we'll get started here in just about like 10-15 seconds. See if anyone is ready to come on, watch this training. I'm super stoked that you guys are here. And like I said, it's going to be a live training, all on Refeed versus cheat days. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, guys, feel free to comment them down below in the comment section there. I'll go through the training first, and then any questions that you guys ask throughout the live stream, obviously, we'll go do a little Q&A at the end of the training. So we'll get straight into this here. It's kind of like one sip of my coffee, and then we'll hop straight into it. Mila, what's going on, brother? All right, guys. So today, like I mentioned, is all about refeed versus cheat days. I know this has been like a highly requested training. A lot of questions around this. A few of you have asked about when to refeed, how to refeed, why it's important, and all that stuff. So that's going to be all about today, the next 10-15 minutes or so. And then again, if you have any questions regarding any of this stuff, comment them down below, and we'll go over Q&A at the very end of the training. So let's hop straight into it, guys. First thing is first, what is a refeed day? What is a cheat day? Okay, and what are the differences? So basically, the only real difference between a cheat day and a refeed day is a cheat day is like an all-out, like eat whatever you want, like no caloric restrictions, pizza, burger, like literally like free-for-all, literally whatever you want, right? And that is unfortunately what most people do, because I feel like the word like cheat day has become such a popularized thing in the fitness industry, especially for people that are dieting, right? Everyone does these like fat loss programs, and they get a massive cheat day, and they eat like crazy amount of food on the weekend and pretty much like revert back to where they started, or kind of lose all the progress they made throughout the week because their caloric surplus that day is like insane, like 5,000-6,000, whatever it is. So that is a cheat day. A refeed day is similar to a cheat day, except it's way more structured, right? A refeed day is basically only increasing your carbs by like 100%, 150%, even up to 200% of your normal intake. And that is really the only thing that changes from your normal diet to a refeed diet. It's basically you're doubling the amount of carbs that you're having, but your fats stay more or less the same, and your protein stays more or less the same. So obviously, the biggest difference between a cheat day and a refeed day is just a refeed day is a lot more structured, and a refeed day can actually help you break plateaus and keep making progress, especially those guys that are in a fat loss, have fat loss goals, versus cheat days are just an all-out brawl of eating whatever you want, however much you want, and actually can hurt your progress or lose the progress that you've made in that week of dieting, right? So obviously that's not what we want. So let's go into why a refeed day is so much more effective, even though you're still eating a lot more food than your normal day when you're dieting. So let's talk about why a refeed day is so much more effective than a cheat day, okay? And the reason why a refeed day is so much more effective is because it has everything to do with your hormones, right? The reason why we're doing these in the first place, a cheat day or a refeed day, whatever you do, is because you're trying to break a plateau. You're trying to kind of reset your metabolism. I feel like that's what most people understand when they hear cheat day or refeed day. They're trying to reset their metabolism, raise their metabolism, or break any plateaus that they've encountered so far in their refeed days or in their fat loss journey. So again, the reason why refeeds are so much more effective than cheat days during a fat loss program is because refeed triggers the hormone leptin. Leptin is critical in continuing your progress, especially in a fat loss journey. Okay, so basically you have obviously several hormones at play when you're going through this process, but basically the two major ones that play a big role in how easy or how efficient your fat loss progress goes is one, your ghrelin levels, and two, your leptin levels, right? So ghrelin is like the hunger hormone. Ghrelin is like, the more ghrelin you have, the hungrier you're gonna be. It's just your body signaling to you that you're starving and you need food. Okay, so ghrelin, like think of it as like goblins. They just want food, right? So the more ghrelin you have, the hungrier you're gonna be. And obviously, if you're starving yourself over an extended period of time, your ghrelin's gonna be really high, right? Because your body wants more food because it's not getting what it used to be getting prior to starting a fat loss journey. Okay, so that's totally normal. The other hormone that I just mentioned is leptin. Leptin controls your metabolism, okay? How fast, how much energy you are burning and expending on a day-to-day basis outside of your cardio, outside of your workouts. Just your how much energy your body is using just doing normal like day-to-day tasks. Okay, so with leptin, this kind of decreases again as the longer you spend in a calorie deficit, the more your leptin levels decrease, and obviously like I just mentioned, your leptin's connected to your metabolism, right? So let's say week one you're starting your fat loss journey, and you have, let's say, 12 weeks to your goal, okay? As the weeks continue, your metabolism is gonna go down because it has to adapt to a lower amount of calories. And as it does that, your leptin level will follow suit, okay? So your leptin and your metabolism will go down together. And your ghrelin might even go up or at least stay the same. So that's why you feel so much hungrier oftentimes when you're like starving yourself in a fat loss program, right? So again, leptin is what controls your metabolism, how hungry you are, how much energy you are expending, and ghrelin controls your hunger and how hungry you are on a day-to-day basis, okay? So the reason, kind of a tangent there on hormones, but the reason why refeeds are so effective is because refeeds will trigger a huge spike in that leptin levels. And as I just mentioned, when you raise your leptin levels, so does your metabolism. Your metabolism will follow suit, right? So this is why refeeds are effective, because, like I just said, it'll raise your metabolism. It'll give you a lot more. Obviously, fill up your glycogen levels in your muscles, and that's what will lead to breaking plateaus. If you're at a plateau, like I mentioned last week, for 3, 4, 5 days consecutively, that's when you need to know, or that's when you know you should be adjusting adjusting and making, at least changing one of the variables that I touched on last week, okay? And refeed and cheat days is one of those tools that you have in your toolbox. Again, I'll touch on in just a couple of minutes how often and when to do these. That is kind of why refeeds are way more effective than cheat days, okay? Again, another reason why is because so refeeds are, again, just a significant spike in carbohydrates, okay? And leptin is most significantly impacted by carbohydrate sources, and that's why refeeds are way more effective than cheat, because if you have like a high fat, like whatever, like pizza, burger, donuts, whatever, that's obviously a combination of high fat, a lot of sugar, like carbs, everything really, right? And so leptin levels is most impacted by a good, clean carbohydrate sources, which I'll touch on in just a sec, versus if you're having like a cheat meals, cheat foods, it's not going to raise leptin quite as high as some of the refeed foods will. Okay, so that kind of in a nutshell is why refeeds are so much more effective, because they're a lot more structured and they have a purpose into raising your leptin levels so that your metabolism will kind of go up, and that will ultimately help you break any plateaus that you come along, obviously, which are inevitable in a fat loss journey. Okay, so the next question I got was, best sources of foods to have for refeed days. Okay, so this is critical. The type of foods, like I just mentioned, is critical to how effective your refeed day will be, and if you're able to break those plateaus or not. This is why I don't advise going on an all-out binge on eating whatever you want, because ultimately the foods that you eat will have a major impact on your leptin levels, which is the only reason really you're doing one of these days, is to raise your leptin levels so you can raise your metabolism to break those plateaus, right? So, in terms of what foods are most effective, any clean carbohydrate sources. Again, the point of these refeed days is to at least double your carbohydrate intake, right? So if you're eating, let's say, 200 grams of carbs per day, on that refeed day, you're going to be eating minimum 400. I would say between 400 and 500 carbs that one day, okay? You can also split it between 2 days, between a weekend if you want, like a Saturday, Sunday, have 3 and 3. Saturday, Sunday, right? But it's either going to be 1 or 2 days of increasing your carbohydrate intake, just so you can really spike that leptin levels so you can break those plateaus. In terms of foods, the best carbohydrate sources are any kind of cleaner carb sources. So breads are my go-to kind of bread. I love bread and like a spread on top. Obviously pasta is great, rice, oatmeal, quinoa, what else? Sweet potato. Any kind of cleaner carb source is like ideal for triggering leptin levels to go up. Okay. When it comes to like cheat meals, cheat days, it's totally fine to have one cheat meal, I would say, but not a cheat day, right? You don't want to be having like every single meal like garbage foods. Okay. One, like a dinner, if you want to go for having pizza, whatever, that's totally fine. But as long as on that day you're doubling your carbohydrate intake, that's the most important, because that is what will that's what will raise leptin the most. Okay, so for those days, aim to consume cleaner carbohydrate sources: breads, pasta, oatmeal, quinoa, sweet potato, potatoes, whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. But those are like kind of the best carb sources to have to raise leptin levels. Try your best to avoid sugary stuff, because sugar and even fruits, those type of carb sources, fructose, aren't as effective in triggering leptin as kind of starchier carbs, like I just mentioned. So kind of those are the go-to for refeed days. And again, with cheat, you can have a cheat meal, but not a cheat day. Okay, so if you want to go for dinner or lunch, whatever, and have a cheat meal that day, totally fine. It's not going to ruin your progress, and it can actually help you because with like mental satiety and just overall kind of compliance to your diet. Okay, so those are kind of the best sources for refeed foods. The last question I have for you that I got quite a bit on this topic was how often, when to do a refeed day, okay? And I wish I could say like an exact like number, like how often, frequency, but I can't, because obviously, like most things in fitness, it has to be individualized to the person, okay? So it is so dependent on your goals, where you are currently, how much body fat, really, that's like the biggest factor, how much body fat you have currently. So there's just so much, your weight, all this stuff plays a role into kind of how often you need a refeed day. But a general rule to follow with knowing how often to have a refeed day is how much body fat you have, how lean or how overweight you are. Okay, so basically, the more overweight you are, I just want to repeat that. The more overweight you are, the less refeed days you will need. Okay. The reason is because your body has so much excess energy to use. It doesn't need refeeds to replenish glycogen and to kind of get those same effects. Also, when you're at a much higher body fat percentage, your rate of leptin decrease is a lot slower than if you're like super shredded, super lean. Okay. So again, the more overweight you are, the less refeeds you will need. The leaner you are, the more refeeds you will need. This is very important to timing how often you need a refeed, okay? And so let's say if you're very overweight, I would say we'll start with the men body fat percentage and then convert it to women. So basically, let's start on the lean side of the spectrum. If you are 10% body fat or under, which is very lean, like shredded six pack, like veins, everything, then you're gonna need a refeed, and you're trying to continue fat loss. Then you will need a refeed day less, like I would say even every half week, every 4 or 5 days. Okay, if you're between 10 and 15% body fat, I would recommend a refeed day once per week. And if you are, let's say, 15 to 25% body fat, again, these are for the males, 15 to 25% body fat, I would suggest every other week, bi-weekly. And then if you're over 25%, you don't need refeeds that often. I would suggest once per month, okay? And then obviously, the leaner you get, the more frequently you're gonna be doing these refeeds, okay? For women, it is the exact same plus 7 or 8 body fat percentage points. So for women, if you are under 17, 18% body fat, then you're gonna need one for every 4 or 5 days. If you are, let's say, between 17 and 24% body fat for women, you're gonna need one about once per week. If you're between 24 and 30, I would say bi-weekly, and anything above 30, 35 plus would be just once a month. Because again, your rate of leptin loss will be significantly slower the more excess body fat you have. Okay, so guys, that is the kind of training there on refeed versus cheat days. And if you guys want this in like a summarized, like a PDF, like a notes kind of format, I actually wrote this exact training in the files tab. So you'll find in the files tab there is a document. I'm actually going to see exactly what it's called. In the files tab of this community that you guys have access to, obviously, because otherwise you wouldn't be watching this. There is a document called Cheat versus Refeed Day. So nice and easy. I uploaded that on April 20th. So it'll just basically be like a summarized like PDF version of what I just discussed in this training. Okay. So if you want like the numbers and everything, frequency, all that stuff will be in detail in that document. So I suggest you guys check out that as well. But I just want to kind of quickly recap this training. One, if you are plateaued in a fat loss journey, the first thing you should be doing is adjusting one of the 4 variables that I touched on last week. Once you have exhausted all 4 of those, then I would suggest a refeed day and not a cheat day, okay? Refeed day being obviously a structured way to increase your calories, increase your carbohydrates, to strategically raise your leptin levels so that we raise the metabolism again, so we break those plateaus that you've been at for 4, 5, 6 days in a row, right? That is the purpose of a refeed day, is to break fat loss plateaus. If you are not plateaued and it's been longer than those time frequencies I just mentioned, then you don't need to do a refeed day, okay? Your body is burning a significant amount of fat. You're still in a calorie deficit. So if you are consistently dropping weight, there's no need to do a refeed day. Save those, guys. Really save those for when you have been stuck at the same weight for like at least 4 or 5 days consecutively. That's when you know. One, either first manipulate one of those variables I touched on last week, then resort to a refeed day, okay? The foods, kind of quick recap. The best foods to have for refeed days are clean carb sources. Rice, quinoa, potatoes, sweet potatoes, breads are my favorite. Pasta is a great one. These will trigger a raise of leptin the most by far, okay? So you want to double your carb intake on the days that you will be refeeding. You want to avoid having cheat days because this will ruin your progress, and is more than likely you're going to be way over your calorie allotment for that day. And you want to have stick to a refeed day and have one cheat meal. If you want to go for dinner, lunch, whatever it is, that is totally fine. That will not move the needle in terms of your fat loss journey. The last thing was how often to refeed, and like I mentioned, the more excess body fat you have, the more frequently you're going to be doing, the less frequently you're going to be doing refeed days. The leaner you are, the more frequently you're going to be doing refeed days, okay? And I just touched on the body fat ranges there. And guys, again, if you want like a summarized PDF, in-depth version of this training, I do have a PDF available in the files tab of this community, kind of going over pretty much everything I just said in this live training. So, guys, that is the training, refeed versus cheat days. Hope you got something out of it. Hope you learned a thing or two from it. Again, these are a great tool. Like I mentioned, you have a toolbox that you can use, especially if all you guys are trying to lose fat. You have a toolbox, a lot of tools that you can use over the course of a 12, 16, 20 week fat loss journey. And if you're using all these tools at once, then in like a month you have nowhere to go. So that's why it's very important to use these tools strategically and just one at a time to manipulate one of those variables, because really any one of those variables will move the needle in your fat loss journey. So guys, that's the training. Hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you all got something from it. If we have any questions, now is the time, guys. We'll do a quick Q&A on this stuff. Anything regarding refeed, cheat, anything like food related, we'll do those type of questions right now. So if you have anything along those lines, drop them down below, and then we'll finish off the Q&A, and then that will be today's live training, and then you guys can all go enjoy your Father's Day here. So let's see, any questions? Kim, Milot, Joseph, what's going on? Noah is live. Donovan. All right, guys, so no questions. Wow, this might be the first training where we have no questions at the end. I'll give it like 30 more seconds. Any questions? Now your time, guys. And by the way, this week's challenge was crazy. I'm literally trying to pick a winner right now. It's hard to pick a winner because it's pretty much everyone. A lot of you guys competed this week. I think we had almost 100 entries into this week's challenge. So great job, guys. Super exciting to see every week kind of more and more of you guys are participating in the weekly challenges. So super fun, super engaging. And I will, as usual, be announcing the winner of that later this evening, 8 p.m. PST. And then we got the last June challenge already. Crazy. Announced tomorrow morning. So that'll be the final June challenge of the month, obviously. And then I will be picking the overall winner for the prize pack at the end of next week. Aaron, what's the best way to be able to tell my body fat percentage? Great question. So body fat percentage is probably one of the hardest things to accurately measure. The gold standard for body fat is called a DEXA scan. So that's where you literally go into like a hospital or like a lab or something like that, and you lay in like one of those like beds, and they literally scan like your whole body. It's called a DEXA scan. I've never done one myself. They are really expensive. They're like $200. I checked, I think here in Calgary, they're like really expensive to do in general. But that's kind of like the gold standard. That's like what Olympic athletes and like people that compete use to find an accurate body fat percentage. Otherwise, it's pretty damn hard, not gonna lie. I would not rely on scales. The best thing you could do is probably the capillaries, or I know some doctors you can ask like a rough body fat percentage. My scale will give me like a very I know it's very off though, because mine's giving me like 14-ish%, and I know I'm leaner than that. But that's a great question. It is very tough to know your exact body fat percentage. So I would say whatever method you're doing, take it with a grain of salt, because it'll give you like a very rough ballpark number. So it might be off by like 3 to 5%, and then just kind of use that as kind of the gauge of how often you're eating your refeeds, right? Unless you're doing a DEXA scan, again, it's going to be pretty impossible to know the exact number, but whatever method you're doing, it'll give you kind of a rough ballpark number, and just use that as to kind of gauge approximately what your body fat levels are. Kim says, I'm nowhere near a refeed day yet. Yeah, exactly. So obviously the leaner you get, the more weight you'll lose, Kim, the more often you're going to need that. So for you, probably maybe once a month, maybe every third week for now. And then once we start really making progress, and obviously we're going to increase that to bi-weekly and so on and so forth. So that is all good. That's totally normal. That's good that you brought that up, because I don't want you to be doing refeeds or cheat days when it's not necessary, right? So great point there. Any last minute questions, guys? Looks like that's all we have for today. Otherwise, we will end it here. And guys, again, happy Father's Day. Hope you all have a fantastic Sunday. Hope you all have some awesome plans later. Maybe some dinners or whatever you guys are doing. Wishing you guys all a happy Father's Day. And yeah, I think I'll end it here. Any last minute questions? I think that is it. All right, guys, so I'm going to end it here. Thank you guys, everyone, for tuning in into today's live training. I know it's Father's Day holiday, so not as many of you guys could watch. If you guys are watching us on the replay, comment down below #replay, so I know who tuned in afterwards. And again, thank you guys all for tuning in. Hope you learned something from this training. We'll be doing a Q&A, because now we've done 2 trainings in a row. So I'll be doing a Q&A next Sunday. So any struggles, any questions that you guys have throughout this week, bring them to next week's Q&A, and then I'll dedicate an entire session just to answer questions. So again, guys, hope you all have a fantastic Sunday, and I'll see and chat with you all very soon.